It was 2005, and the third Star Wars prequel, Revenge of the Sith, was about to be released. Not only would this conclude the prequel trilogy, but at the time we were informed that this was also going to conclude the Star Wars saga, and to tie it all up in a neat bow, and to bring the Star Wars mythology full circle. The first two prequel entries, The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, weren't exactly embraced by fans at the time. So the big question on everyone's minds was, would this entry make up for that and be better? And will we once again see some of that great Star Wars magic? Well, the answer is yes. In this entry, which is probably the most intense Star Wars movie ever, as we bear witness to Anakin Skywalker's downfall at the hands of the manipulative Palpatine, aka Darth Sidious, where Anakin transforms and goes through extreme attempts in order to save his love Padme. But, as we all know, his dark side efforts will lead him to the path of Darth Vader. If only Anakin could have accepted that Obi-Wan had the high ground, then this could have been avoided. So today we're exploring the dark side of the Force by looking into 10 things that you didn't know about Revenge of the Sith, or as I like to call it, the last temptation of Anakin. So, let's check it out. Number 10. The evolution of the story goes back to the Return of the Jedi novelization. One thing that was no doubt on the minds of fans of the original Star Wars trilogy is what exactly happened to Anakin Skywalker to leave him bound in that menacing Darth Vader life support suit. We see him unmasked in Return of the Jedi, where we can also see that he's been horrifically scarred, but we were never given an explanation. Well, we finally see this physical transformation in Revenge of the Sith, where Anakin didn't heed Obi-Wan Kenobi's threat of being on the high ground. And thus, after a lightsaber duel with Kenobi, Anakin's body is horrifically burned by lava. Well, the origins of this grisly fate can be traced back to the novelization of Return of the Jedi, all the way back in 1983, in which, in that book, Obi-Wan explains to Luke Skywalker that after a duel with Anakin, that Anakin's body was horrifically burned and destroyed by molten lava. This dialogue didn't make it into the movie. However, fans finally got the answers thanks to this as-mentioned novelization. And thus, Revenge of the Sith, some 22 years later, delivered on that promise. Number 9. The development of the dark side Seduction. It is said that even before the second prequel, Attack of the Clones, was complete and in theaters, that George Lucas wasted no time and was getting to work to make Revenge of the Sith, in order to complete his new trilogy. One of the most complex mechanics of this story is Anakin's eventual turn to the dark side, where he lets go of his Jedi ways and embraces Darth Vader. Well, certain changes were made in order for the transition to be more fluent. For example, at the very start of the movie, after the space crawl, there was to be an epic montage of the Clone Wars. To be precise, 7 different battles on 7 different planets. It was to show the true devastation and large scope and scale of the Clone Wars. So the beginning was changed to where we see Obi-Wan and Anakin rescue Palpatine from Count Dooku and General Grievous, which results in Anakin slaying an unarmed, or in this case, unhand Dooku, at Palpatine's insistence. It demonstrates early on that Anakin is on a descent into the dark side, and that Palpatine is easily able to manipulate him. Also, once filming the movie was complete, George Lucas wanted to reshoot some scenes, as in the original cut, a leading factor to Anakin turning bad was a belief that he had that the Jedi were trying to overpower the Republic and overthrow it. Lucas wanted the new scenes to show that his main reason for turning bad and killing the younglings, other than his concerns for the Republic, was out of his love of Padme and his desperation to save her. The fact that Darth Vader became Darth Vader out of love and trying to save his true love makes the character really tragic. When you go back and watch the original trilogy after watching Revenge of the Sith, you kind of see Darth Vader in a new light. You feel kind of sorry for him. Number 8. Planned ties to previous Star Wars movies. So back in 2005, this was to be the conclusion to the Star Wars saga, with everything wrapped up, leaving no loose ends. And so the original script had more callbacks to previous Star Wars movies. One of these includes a scene where Yoda contacts the Jedi spirit of Qui-Gon Jinn, where the two communicate. This scene would have marked the start of the Jedi Force Ghost phenomena. There were even talks for Liam Neeson to come back and to film a cameo, but it didn't end up happening. Instead, we're left with Yoda telling Obi-Wan about Qui-Gon Jinn being able to come back, and that's pretty much all we get, which admittedly wasn't as spectacular. Another rejected idea was the revelation that Palpatine was going to be Anakin's father, and that he created him by manipulating the midichlorians that create life. Midichlorians was a controversial plot point from the first movie in the prequel trilogy, The Phantom Menace, as it's described as what give people the Force. So I guess we were to believe that Palpatine somehow used the dark side of the Force to create Shmi Skywalker's pregnancy, which actually would have explained how Anakin came to be. This was also designed to somewhat mirror the revelation that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father. But this plot point was dropped, which I think is a shame. I can remember watching Revenge of the Sith for the first time in a movie theatre, and in that scene where Palpatine talks to Anakin during the space opera show about manipulating midichlorians to create life, I was so sure he was going to tell Anakin that he created him. I was just waiting for him to say, "I'm your father," or "I created you," or something to that effect. But you know what? Maybe he did. Maybe this was meant to be a hint that Palpatine may be Anakin's father, and it's up to us the viewer to how we interpret it, rather than the knowledge just being spoon-fed to us. Did anyone else see that scene for the first time and were just waiting for Palpatine to tell Anakin that he created him? Number 7. Deleted character. So I've already chewed away at certain deleted aspects and plot points of Revenge of the Sith, but now we come to a deleted character, as an early draft of the script was to feature a 10-year-old Han Solo. And, yeah, look, I'm really glad that didn't happen. That would have been terrible. I can forgive Chewbacca for being shoehorned into this story, but I think that mini Han Solo just really would not have done it for me. I can actually remember watching Red Letter Media's review of Revenge of the Sith and how they said something to the effect of one of the best parts of Revenge of the Sith are the bits that they didn't put into it, namely child Han Solo. Now when I saw that, I actually thought that Red Letter Media were joking. But no, at one point in the early draft, we were going to have child Han Solo. Ugh. I wonder who they would have gotten to play him. Probably Shia LaBeouf or some shit. However, one element from Star Wars' past that did make it into Revenge of the Sith came from, of all places, the holiday special, as we return to the Wookiee home planet of Kashyyyk, which was first introduced in the as-mentioned special. And the design of the planet and environment was actually inspired by the look of the planet seen in the controversial special. Hey, at the end of the day, the planet looks pretty cool, so I guess it doesn't really matter. Although it would have been interesting if we got a cameo from the Stir Whip alien. Okay, that's just a joke. Number 6. Ghost Director. Most of the filming for Revenge of the Sith took place at Fox Studios, Sydney, Australia, just as with the previous movie. There was also additional scenes being filmed in the UK, Italy, China, Thailand, and Switzerland. Now there is something of, I guess you could say, an urban legend or conspiracy theory that George Lucas's friend and bro pal Steven Spielberg secretly directed Revenge of the Sith, and that he would be snuck onto the sets when there was no media or press around and direct the movie, while keeping the facade that Lucas was the true director. There's a similar rumour doing the rounds that Spielberg also secretly directed Goodfellas, but that's a story for another time. Now, although a lot of the speculation does seem like rumour, it seems that Spielberg was involved at some capacity, as even Wikipedia states that he was brought in as a guest director to help out with some second unit work, namely the Obi-Wan and Anakin lightsaber battle in the climax, as well as overseeing a few other bits and pieces. So I guess that shows that Spielberg actually was a part of Revenge of the Sith's production at some capacity. You never know, Spielberg might just be directing this video.
Nah, he's not. But he might be. But he isn't. But he could. But he's totally not. But maybe he is. Who knows?
Number 5. A real volcano helped with filming. Without a doubt, the scenes on the planet Mustafar are pretty intense, as the planet looks like a fierce, fiery, hellish realm. A terrifying planet of fire and volcanoes. And some of you may be thinking, well, yeah, it looks pretty good, but let's be honest, it's all just CGI. Well, not necessarily. An actual active volcano was used to film some of these shots. Hear me out. While Revenge of the Sith was being filmed, a volcano in Italy called Mount Etna had erupted. So camera crews for Revenge of the Sith literally flew out to the location to film several angles of the active volcano and insert the footage into some of the background scenes at Mustafar. I know that when it comes to the prequels, George Lucas gets a lot of flack for seemingly not being very proactive, with him often sitting down drinking his coffee. But the crew definitely were hands-on. I mean, come on, they actually went to an active volcano for our entertainment. Speaking of the shoot, that last scene of Darth Vader and General Tarkin on the Star Destroyer observing the construction of the Death Star was actually the first scene for the movie that was shot. It was actually shot during the shoot of Attack of the Clones, with it being shot all the way back in the year 2000, 5 years before the release of Revenge of the Sith.
We probably should have gotten more General Tarkin in Revenge of the Sith. He's a pretty important character in the lore, and yet he just randomly turns up at the very end. Like, why did Palpatine pick him? What's their connection?
Number 4. The Man in the Fiberglass Mask. So it's here we finally get to the reveal of Darth Vader in his suit. Although Darth Vader's return to the big screen gets a fair bit of criticism for the character crying out no, it was still cool seeing him back on the screen. I never got to see the original trilogy at movie theatres as I was too young. Heck, I wasn't even born when the first two came out. So it was a great experience for me to witness him on the big screen. Now, in order to bring Darth Vader back to life, it was intended to just get a stunt double, aka a tall guy to play Darth in the suit. Anakin actor Hayden Christensen really wanted to actually play Vader in the suit, and had begged and pleaded with Lucas for him to wear it, to which Lucas obliged. This new Darth Vader suit had to be tailor-made to Christensen, and even featured shoe lifts to make him taller. As a result, Christensen's eye vision was actually looking out the helmet's mouthpiece. I remember back in the day, all us nerds were searching the web and movie magazines trying to catch a glimpse of Darth Vader in Revenge of the Sith, and when a few shots finally did surface, we lost our freaking minds with excitement. I mean, look at it, it's awesome, Darth Vader's back, yeah! I can remember that even trying to find out the movie's title was an exciting online treasure hunt. There were lots of rumours of what the movie was going to be called, like Rise of the Empire and Birth of the Empire. Finally, the Star Wars website gave us the name of the new Star Wars movie, with it being called The Creeping Fear. Which sounds strange, but we all believed it because it didn't sound any more bizarre than The Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones. But no, this Creeping Fear title announcement was just an April Fool's joke. I can remember when the title Revenge of the Sith was announced, and it just felt right. Unlike the previous two movies, it actually sounded like a Star Wars title. And it was a nice little reference to the original title of Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Jedi, because unlike the Jedi, the Sith do seek revenge. Number 3. Revenge of the Cast. Revenge of the Sith has a huge lineup of actors, including Star Wars veterans Frank Oz as Yoda, Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine, as well as Hayden Christensen as Anakin, Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, Natalie Portman as Padme, Samuel L. Jackson as Mace Windu, Christopher Lee as Count Dooku, Jimmy Smith as Bail Organa, and not to mention other supporting returning cast members like Anthony Daniels as C-3PO, Kenny Baker as R2-D2, and Peter Mayhew as Chewie, who finally returned after 22 years. However, Revenge of the Sith featured a new character, that being the villainous General Grievous. I always felt the movie plays up like he's meant to be this big-time villain in the story, but the first time I watched Revenge of the Sith, I was confused as he hadn't appeared in any previous Star Wars movie. Well, that's because little did I know then that the character was created 2 years earlier and featured in the Clone Wars animated series, which I didn't watch, hence the confusion. The character was voiced by voice actor and sound editor Matthew Wood. However, actor Gary Oldman was also offered to voice the character, but he couldn't as Revenge of the Sith wasn't part of the Actors Guild. Although Wood claims that Oldman didn't get the part because his voice audition wasn't successful. Oh, and the character's nasty cough was actually done by George Lucas himself. While we're talking about the cast, I feel like at the time Hayden Christensen got a lot of backlash for his performance as Anakin, which I think was kind of unjust. I mean, yes, some of his delivery of lines is a bit off and awkward, but I find that to be the case with most of the cast. Even Ewan McGregor and Natalie Portman have off moments where their performances seem kind of cringy, but everyone gave them a free pass and focused the negativity solely on Christensen. I don't think it's any of the actors' faults. I think they were all doing their best with the script, of which probably needed a dialogue polish. To me, the only actors in Revenge of the Sith who give flawless performances are Ian McDiarmid and Samuel L. Jackson. But Christensen really does have moments where he shines too. You can really feel his suffering, fear, and confusion, as well as his pain, anger, and desperation. And I think you can see Christensen goes all out and immerses himself with the character and became this troubled, tortured soul. But sadly, no one really remembers all of those powerful moments, but rather the "no, it's because I'm so in love with you" part. Number 2, deleted scenes. The original cut for Revenge of the Sith clocked in at just over 4 hours long. Yeah, there was a lot to get through in this movie, but clearly some trimmings were needed to get it down to its eventual 2 hours and 20-minute duration. Some of the deleted scenes that stood out to me involved the rescue mission at the start, where we see another Jedi called Shaak Ti, who was also part of the rescue mission, getting brutally killed by General Grievous, and Anakin and Obi-Wan are really pissed off about it. We also see them do some weird hand signals and gestures to each other, which was kind of code for them for what were they going to do next. In fact, there are a lot of deleted scenes from the rescue at the start of the movie, as it originally went on for over an hour long. That's 1/4 of the original cut's running time. We also see the formation of the rebellion. In fact, the formation of the rebellion is actually quite a big plot point that was cut out. I guess it was felt that there was already too much going on. But it's a shame as the rebellion was such a huge aspect of the original trilogy. We also have this scene where Padme confronts Palpatine, where Padme has this really interesting headgear going on. It's funny because this is how we see Padme on the movie's poster, despite the fact that we never actually see this look in the final film. Oopsie whoopsie daisies! The scene ends with Palpatine, as cunning as he is, try to turn Anakin against Padme. We also see Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Mace Windu speak of their growing concerns with Palpatine, where Mace Windu even explores the prospect of arresting him, which kind of shows that Mace Windu already had suspicions of Palpatine before Anakin informed him that he's the Sith Lord that they've been looking for. And finally, a scene at the end where Yoda exiles himself to the Dagobah system, which sets up to where we see him in The Empire Strikes Back. This was cut because it was decided that the end of the movie should solely focus on the fate of the Skywalkers, aka Padme's funeral, Anakin becoming Darth Vader, and the separation of Luke and Leia. Personally, some of these scenes didn't really need to be in the film, so I understand why they were cut, but it would have been interesting to see the formation of the rebellion.
There are actually tons of deleted scenes. Many of them weren't even finished, with green screens in the background and unfinished CGI. So if you're interested, seek them out.
Number 1. Legacy of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith was released in May 2005, and the question that was on everyone's minds was, could Revenge of the Sith relight that Star Wars spark that many felt were missing in the previous 2 installments, and be a satisfying conclusion to the Star Wars saga? Financially speaking, Revenge of the Sith was very successful, making over $868 million on a $113 million budget, making it the highest grossing movie of 2005, beating the latest Harry Potter movie and Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds. And because of some of the more intense and violent scenes in the movie, Revenge of the Sith was the first Star Wars movie to get a PG-13 rating. Although I'm surprised it didn't get an R rating, what with the scene of Anakin literally getting burnt alive. And no, the movie doesn't shy away from any of the graphic scenery. But hey, I'm all for a violent, bloody R-rated Star Wars movie. That'll probably be awesome. It got fairly good reviews from critics. Some praised its storytelling, emotional drama, and special effects, whereas some felt that it still had issues that the previous two entries had. But many agreed that it was the best entry in the prequel trilogy. And from my own memory, that was pretty much the common reaction, that it may not be the best Star Wars movie, but it was a lot better than the previous two. Despite its issues, I definitely found Revenge of the Sith to be a return of form in the series. Yes, it has its problems, and it still has some scenes that kind of feel like daytime soaps, which I felt Attack of the Clones also had. And nothing in this movie really feels organic. It is all just one big giant orgy of CGI, making the movie feel really synthetic. But damn it if I'm not fully invested in the movie from start to finish. Unlike the previous two, I can overlook some issues that I have and still really get on board with this movie. All the way through, it has my full attention. Its drama and storytelling is really compelling. It's basically the story of a hero who gets tricked and manipulated till he loses everything and becomes an angry, mean shell of himself. From start to finish, you can feel the gears constantly turning in Anakin and how he's being manipulated by Palpatine, like it's all set in motion, till we have the eventual Darth Vader climax. This story is without a doubt the most paradoxical of all Star Wars movies. Anakin turns to the dark side to save Padme, but it's him turning to the dark side that kills her. Revenge of the Sith is a tragedy, in every sense of the word. It's almost Shakespearean. This is probably without a doubt the most intense and gloomy Star Wars movie. This is not a fun space adventure. 1977 is long gone. But in its tragedy lies a truly brilliant science fiction spectacle. This is Star Wars at its most merciless and cruel, and even unforgiving. Even when I watch this movie now, I still kind of hope that things will go differently for Anakin, but nope, the story is now legend. Anakin must turn to the dark side, and this is the chapter that takes us there. With this movie almost feeling like an intergalactic nightmare. It is honestly a brilliant Star Wars movie, and one that I've really come to love more and more with the passing of time. This is the Star Wars movie that hurts, and the Star Wars movie that you'll take with you and you'll never forget.
I think that in the past I've been quite critical of the prequels, but I think Revenge of the Sith is definitely worthy of more praise and recognition. This is the closest the viewer will ever get to the dark side, and when you think about it, Revenge of the Sith is a triumph story for the dark side. The Emperor won. He rose to power and became victorious and completely destroyed Anakin by doing so. Anyway, I'm Minty, and that was my look into Revenge of the Sith. Not to be confused with Revenge of the Nerds. See ya!